My name is Rizwan. My story begins in a small village, tucked away in a corner of Sanghar district in Sindh, my ancestral village. Wherever you looked, there were fields, the earthy smell of soil, and the sky turning red in the evenings. That was our world. We lived in small houses, cooked in clay pots, used wooden stoves, but our dreams were big. My father was a hardworking farmer. From morning till evening, he worked in the fields, sometimes cotton, sometimes wheat, sometimes chickpeas. The income was just enough to get 2 meals a day. My mother did sewing and embroidery to cover small expenses. Poverty was our destiny, but hope was always with us. I was the eldest among my 3 siblings, so my parents' expectations from me were greater than from the others. In childhood, while other children played marbles, flew kites, and climbed trees, I would sit on the terrace, lost in books. Our village school was a small, makeshift building where the roof leaked during rains, but none of that mattered to me. My heart was in my studies. I felt a strange urge inside me to do something, to change my destiny, to raise my parents' head with pride. My closest friends were Cameron, Salim, and Farouk. They were my classmates. After school, we would run toward the fields, play by the canal bank, or steal mangoes from orchards. But when it came to studies, my friends knew that no one could compete with Rizwan. Electricity often went out in the village. On such nights when darkness covered everything, I would sit with a lantern's dim light and open my books. My mother would sit beside me, sometimes fanning me, sometimes silently placing her hand on my head and praying, "Son, may Allah make you successful." I heard that prayer countless times. Life was not easy. Often, to pay my school fees, my father had to sell 1 or 2 of our buffaloes. Sometimes the wish for new shoes died in my heart, but I never lost courage. In the matriculation exams, I secured a position in the entire district. When the result came out, every person in the village congratulated my father. That day was like the fulfillment of a dream for me. Now the question was, what next? I had to go to the city, get admission in a college. My father sold a small piece of land to pay for my admission. For the first time, I left my village. When I stepped into Hyderabad city, it felt like I had entered another world. Tall buildings, fast cars, people dressed in colorful clothes. Everything was strange and new, but I was not afraid. I had made a promise to myself. No matter how many difficulties come, I will not step back. Days were spent in college, nights in a small room studying. Often I slept hungry, but I never let my dreams go hungry. After graduation, I applied for a job at a large company. I gave many interviews, heard rejection from many places, but finally, luck favored me. I got a job as a junior officer in a famous company. That was the beginning. I worked with all my heart. Soon my hard work paid off and I kept progressing. Within a few years, I reached the position of manager. The boy who had played in the mud now sat in a plush office in the city. But one thing never changed. My village, my parents, my roots. I would go to my village every Sunday. In the beginning, I traveled by bus, a bone-shaking 2-hour journey, dust and sun scorching the roads, but my heart overflowed with happiness because I was going home. This was the first part of my life story, a farmer's son who chased his dreams and reached the city lights. But little did I know that one day these lights would turn into a terrifying darkness. When I got a promotion and a good salary increase, I decided that now I should have a permanent place in the city. Commuting to the office in crowded buses had become difficult. After saving for some time, I rented a small flat in a middle-class area of the city, a small 2-room flat, but for me, it was like a dream. When I first turned the key and opened the door, a strange wave of happiness ran through my heart. Life had now become better. Getting ready in the morning, going to the office, working all day, and returning to my flat in the evening to rest, this had become routine. In the beginning, some friends advised me to buy a motorcycle to celebrate my new job, but my dream was a little bigger. Since childhood, I had thought that when I get a vehicle, I would take my parents with me to the village. So I waited. I saved more. After about 1.5 years of hard work and saving, that day came when I bought my first car, a small white car, perfectly within my means. When I touched its shiny body, It felt as if my childhood dream had become reality. I called my mother, her voice choked. "Son, you have fulfilled our dreams. May Allah keep you safe." Now every Sunday became even more special for me. Traveling by car was a different pleasure. When I left the city and drove on open roads, my heart would involuntarily fill with gratitude. The journey also became easier. The road that used to take 2.5 hours now took me an hour and a half to reach my village. On the way, I would drink tea at some roadside stall, listen to light music, and enjoy the drive. When I overtook the old buses, I would smile to myself. This success was the fruit of my parents' prayers. One such Sunday, work at the office had been a bit heavy, so I was forced to leave in the evening instead of the afternoon. The plan was to leave early so that I could reach the village before nightfall. But the workload was such that by the time I left the office, night had already fallen. There was a light coolness in the evening and a flood of lights on the busy city roads. I checked the engine, inspected the tires, and started the journey in the name of Allah. The city lights fell behind. Slowly, the crowds decreased. Roads became deserted. On both sides were barren fields and occasional glimpses of farmland. Far and wide, there was no habitation. The speedometer was showing 80 kilometers per hour. An hour of the journey had passed. My hands were firmly on the steering wheel. A light breeze was blowing and clusters of trees appeared on the roadside. That night, light clouds covered the sky. The moon was not shining with full brightness, only sometimes peeking through the clouds to spread a faint moonlight on the road. My headlights illuminated the road and a deep silence surrounded everything. I turned on the radio so that the journey wouldn't get boring. Old guzzles were playing. Sometimes a window of memories would open, and childhood days would appear before my eyes. The smell of village soil, my mother's smile, my father's tired face returning from the fields, my sister's laughter. Everything came back. My heart was filled with a strange feeling of love and peace. Nothing unusual had happened on the road so far. The journey continued smoothly. I only felt a slight tiredness because I had worked all day before traveling. I thought about stopping somewhere to rest for a while, but then I decided I would sleep peacefully after reaching the village. This area was deserted, so stopping here was not appropriate. I was now about to approach a turn about which local people said that accidents sometimes happen here, but I had never paid attention to these things. For me, it was just another turn, like thousands of others. I reduced speed slightly and began preparing to take the turn. Little did I know that today's turn was going to change my life. The car's speed had already decreased. The bend in the road was coming into view in the headlights. I gripped the steering wheel tighter. The road was completely deserted, no other vehicle, no pedestrian. Only darkness and the black shadows of trees standing on the roadside. Just as I entered the turn, the car jolted slightly. No sooner had it straightened than the scene before me froze, and I went numb for a moment. In the middle of the road, a woman was lying on the ground. Wrapped in white clothes, her hair disheveled, her body completely motionless. The headlights were shining directly on her, and the scene looked like something from a movie. For a moment, my mind refused to understand whether this was real or an illusion. My foot involuntarily hit the brake. The car jolted to a stop a few feet away. My heart was pounding loudly. For a few moments, I just sat inside the car, staring at her through the window. Was this an accident? Was someone injured? Did she need help? A wave of questions rose in my heart, but at the same time a strange hesitation gripped me. It was night, a deserted place, no witnesses. What if something went wrong? A sense of suffocation filled the car. I took a deep breath, prayed in my heart, and opened the car door. There was a strange coldness in the air. I stepped outside. In the headlight, the woman still lay motionless. The distance was not great, perhaps 20 or 30 steps. I began walking slowly toward her. With every step, my heartbeat increased. The sound of my shoes echoed on the road. When I reached a few steps away, a strange unease set in. The woman's body seemed very unnatural, as if she had just been placed there, as if there was no life in her. I called out loudly, "Lady, can you hear me? What happened to you?" There was no answer, no movement. I bent down a little closer, trying to see her face, but her tangled hair covered it. I gathered courage and reached out to move the hair aside. But just as my hand went forward, her body twitched very slightly, but enough to make me step back. My heart pounded harder. I thought, maybe she is alive, maybe she needs help. But then she became completely still again, as if nothing had happened. What should I do? There was a conflict inside me. Should I leave her and go? That would be against humanity. If she was really injured, my help was necessary. But what if it was something else? What if she was part of some trap? Who knows if robbers were hiding nearby? My mind was working fast. My heart said, help. My mind said, be cautious. I took out my mobile phone, thinking I would call the police. But there was no network signal here. In this area, the network was weak anyway, but tonight it was completely dead. Now I was in deep confusion. On one side, darkness and silence. On the other, a woman lying on the ground. While I was thinking, another strange thing happened. In the headlight, I noticed that the woman had no feet. Where her feet should have been, there was only empty ground. It seemed as if her body was fatting, disappearing from below. A cold wave ran down my spine. I could not move for a moment. My eyes remained fixed. My mind screamed, go back to the car, immediately, but my body had turned to stone. The woman moved again. This time, her head began to slowly rise. Her face was still covered with hair, but her posture and movement were such that my heart rose to my throat. I mustered whatever courage I had left, stepped back, and ran toward the car. I opened the door, threw myself inside, and slammed it shut. Panting and trembling, I barely managed to start the engine. I released the clutch and pressed the accelerator with all my strength. The car moved forward, but as the headlights illuminated the scene ahead, my grip on the steering wheel tightened even more. The woman was now standing in the middle of the road, in a most unnatural posture, head bowed, hair scattered over her face, arms hanging straight down, and her white clothes fluttering slightly in the wind. I felt as if she was looking at me, even though her face was completely hidden by hair. My breaths became short. For a moment, I thought of turning the car around and fleeing back towards the city. But my heart said, no, be brave, just get through. I gritted my teeth and increased the car's speed further. My intention was to ignore her and drive straight ahead. The car sped toward her. Now only a few meters remained. My eyes widened with fear. My hands were slipping on the sweaty steering wheel. My heart was beating with full force. As the car approached, the woman suddenly moved in a strange, unnatural way, as if her feet were not on the ground but floating in the air. She came right in front of the car. I slammed the brake in terror. The car stopped with a jolt. The engine sputtered. In the headlights, the woman was clearly visible just 2 feet away, barely 2 feet. Now she was slowly raising her neck, very slowly in a horrifying manner. It seemed as if her bones were creaking. My body had gone completely numb. I had neither the courage to run nor to close my eyes. Her neck was now fully straight, but her face was still hidden behind her hair. I sat holding my breath. The car's engine had become part of my terrified breathing, making the atmosphere even heavier with its slow noise. Then suddenly, the woman began to walk slowly toward me. Her gait was not like that of an ordinary human. It seemed as if her feet were not on the ground, but she was gliding through the air. With every passing moment, she came closer. The fear inside me grew. I felt that if I did not do something, this thing would enter the car. I quickly turned the steering wheel, trying to veer left. The tires screeched, but somehow the car turned. Without looking back, I pressed the accelerator with all my might. The car sped away on the deserted road. My heartbeat was faster than the engine's revs. A few moments later, I glanced in the rearview mirror. What I saw there was enough to shake my soul. The woman was still standing in the middle of the road, but her body was slowly fatting like smoke dissolving in the air. I squeezed my eyes shut, and prayers involuntarily started flowing from my tongue. The car kept running. Now more open areas appeared on the road, fields stretching far and wide into the darkness. But the fear had settled in my heart that perhaps she was still following me. I gathered courage and looked again in the rearview mirror. There was nothing behind, just darkness, silence, and a few twinkling stars on the distant horizon. I took a deep breath and consoled myself that I had survived. But in some corner of my heart, a strange fear had taken root, a fear that refused to lessen. It felt as if that presence was still somewhere near me. Perhaps inside the car, perhaps on the roof, perhaps on the seat beside me. I turned my head with a jerk and looked at the empty passenger seat. There was nothing, but my heart swore that something was there. The car was now speeding toward the village boundary. In the distance, the faint twinkling lights of a few houses began to appear. A glimmer of hope flickered in my heart. Just a little further, just a little more, and I would reach my home. I would be among my people, under the shadow of my mother's prayers. The car entered the village limits. Those distant, flickering lights gave me some courage. My heart was pounding, but I kept telling myself that I was safe now. In a few minutes, I would be at my doorstep. I would drink my mother's tea, and all this horror would remain behind like a bad dream. I took out my mobile and checked the time. It was around 12:30 a.m. I reduced the car's speed a little, because driving too fast through the narrow lanes of the village could be dangerous. The road was deserted. No one was visible anywhere. Only the faint sounds of barking dogs and the distant hoot of an owl could be heard. As I turned into my street, I felt an unknown sensation, as if the car had become heavier, as if someone else was with me. Involuntarily, I turned my neck to look at the back seat. There was nothing but darkness. I shook my head and drove on. Just the door of my house remained. When I reached directly in front of my house, I stopped the car, turned off the engine, and took a deep breath. Faint light was peeking through the windows of the house. My mother had probably fallen asleep waiting for me. I opened the door, placed my foot on the ground, and as I began to step out, a cold, icy breath felt right next to my ear. A faint, broken voice whispered, "Where are you going?" My spine tingled. I could not muster the courage to turn around. My hands began to tremble involuntarily. My feet stuck to the ground. Complete silence fell for a few moments. My senses had abandoned me. I gathered all my strength, recited a prayer, and ran toward the house with full force. I knocked on the door. My mother woke up from sleep and opened it. I entered, panting and trembling. My mother looked behind me, astonished. "Son, what happened? Why are you so scared?" I could only say, "Nothing, Amy. The road was long." But inside, I knew that whatever it was, whatever that presence was, it had not left me. It had entered my life forever. That night I could not sleep. I lay on my old charpie, staring at the ceiling, listening to every small sound. The wind outside, the creaking of the door, the rustle of leaves, every sound made me jerk. But the voice did not come again. Not that night. The next morning the sun rose and the world seemed normal again. My mother made breakfast. My father went to the fields. My sisters laughed and talked. Life had returned to its routine. I began to convince myself that it had all been an illusion, a hallucination caused by exhaustion, darkness, and a lonely road. But I could not forget the feet that were not there, the body that faded like smoke, and that voice, that cold, broken whisper, "Where are you going?" I did not tell anyone in my family. What would I say? That I had seen a ghost on the road? They would think I had lost my mind. Or worse, they would worry about me every time I traveled. So I kept silent. I smiled, ate, talked, and pretended that everything was fine. But I knew it was not. The next Sunday I was supposed to go to the village again. I had promised my mother I would come. But now, the thought of driving on that deserted road at night filled me with dread. I decided to leave early, before sunset. I told my boss I needed to leave by 3 p.m. He agreed. That afternoon I left the city in bright daylight. The The sun was still high. The road was busy with traffic. The familiar fields and trees looked peaceful, not menacing. I reached the village before evening. My mother was happy. My father smiled. Everything was good. But when night fell, the fear returned. I lay awake listening. The hours passed. Nothing happened. I thought perhaps the encounter was a one-time thing, a trick of the mind under stress. The next few weekends, I continued traveling during the day. I avoided the night road completely. Life went on. I even began to forget. Then one evening, I had to stay late at the office for an urgent meeting. By the time I left, the sun had set and darkness was spreading. I could have stayed in the city and gone to the village the next morning, but my mother was unwell and I wanted to see her. I told myself that one night would be fine. I had driven this road many times. Nothing would happen. I started the journey. The car's headlights cut through the growing darkness. The city lights fell behind, and soon I was on the open highway. The road was quiet but not completely empty. A few trucks passed by. That comforted me. I reached the same stretch where the woman had appeared. My heart began to race. I gripped the steering wheel tightly. I recited prayers under my breath. The car sped past the spot. Nothing happened. I let out a long breath. I was safe. Then about 10 kilometers further, I saw something ahead. A figure standing at the side of the road. Not lying down this time, standing, clad in white, hair covering the face, arms hanging straight. My foot pressed the brake. The car slowed. I wanted to speed up, but my body would not obey. I stared at the figure. It did not move. It just stood there perfectly still, as if waiting. I said to myself, "Drive, just drive." I pressed the accelerator. The car lunged forward. I steered to the far side of the road, as far from the figure as possible. As I passed, I glanced sideways. The figure had turned its head. It was facing me. I looked straight ahead and did not look back until the car had put miles between us. When I finally checked the rearview mirror, the road was empty. I reached the village without further incident. But that night, as I lay in my bed, I heard a soft sound outside my window, a faint tapping. I pulled the blanket over my head and recited prayers until dawn. The next morning, I told my mother that I would not be coming to the village every weekend anymore. I made excuses about work. She looked at me with concern but did not push. I stopped driving at night altogether, for months. I avoided the road after sunset. I would either leave early or stay in the city, but the fear had become a part of me. I would see white clothes on a laundry line and freeze. I would hear a whisper in a crowded room and spin around. One day I met an old friend from the village, a man named Rashid who had worked as a truck driver for many years. Over tea, I told him about the road and the figure I had seen. He listened quietly. Then he said, "That stretch has always been like that. My father used to tell me stories. Years ago, a woman died there. Some say it was an accident. Some say she was murdered. But her body was found in the middle of the road, her head covered in blood. Since then, travelers have reported seeing her." I asked, "Why does she appear?" He shrugged. "Some say she is looking for justice. Some say she is looking for her killer. But the old people say that she does not harm anyone who does not stop. The ones who stop, who try to help, they see her face, and after that she follows them." My blood ran cold. I had stopped. I had tried to help. I had seen her move, her head rise, her body fade. "Does she ever leave?" I asked. Rashid looked at me with pity. "She never leaves," he said. "She only waits, and every time you drive that road she will be there, watching." I never drove that road again. I changed my route, adding an extra hour to the journey. I would go through another town, even if it meant taking longer. I told my family that the old road was in bad condition. They believed me. Years passed. I got married and had children. Life was good. But sometimes, late at night, when the house was quiet, I would feel a cold presence in the room. I would look at the window, and for a split second I would see a figure in white. Then it would be gone. My wife once asked me why I always recited prayers before sleeping. I told her it was a habit from childhood. I did not tell her the truth. Some burdens are carried alone. One night my daughter, who was then 5 years old, woke up crying. She said she had seen a lady in white standing at the foot of her bed, staring at her. My heart stopped. I held her and told her it was just a dream. But that night I did not sleep. I sat by her bed, reciting verses until dawn. The next morning I called a religious scholar. He came to the house, recited prayers, and sprinkled blessed water in every room. He told me that the thing that had attached itself to me had now found a way to my children. He gave me a small amulet to hang above the door and told me to recite specific verses every night before sleep. I did everything he said. The presence faded. The nightmare stopped. My daughter stopped seeing the woman. But I knew that she had not left. She was only waiting for a moment of weakness, for a door left open, for a night when I would forget to pray. I am telling this story now so that others might be warned. If you drive at night on a deserted road and you see a woman in white lying in the middle of the street, do not stop. Do not get out. Do not try to help. Drive past, do not look back, and pray until the dawn comes. Because some faces are not meant to be seen, and some voices, once heard, never leave. May Allah protect every traveler on every road, especially those who journey at night. May He shield us from the unseen that walks the empty highways, and may He forgive us for the times we let curiosity overcome caution. If you liked this story, please like the video and leave a kind comment. Subscribe to the channel for more true stories of fear and faith. We will meet again, God willing, with another story.